keep him broad and tranquil and deep as the mystic, beating the ocean's tides. Then under the alders at Strix's edge, now soft on sand, now loud on ledge, is heard the tramp of the steed as he rides.
Once over the neck, I rode through Roxbury, Brookline, and on to Cambridge. Dating Bridge, I continued to accommodate where I met the road from Southtown to Lexington.
It was 12 by the village clock when I came to the bridge in Medford town. He heard the barking of the farmer's dog and the crowing of the rooster, and felt the damp of the river fog that rises after the sun goes down. It was 1 by the village clock when he galloped into Lexington. He heard the gilt weathercock swing in the moonlight as fast, and the meeting house windows, blank and bare, gaze at him with a spectral glare as if they already stood aghast at the bloody work they would look upon.
I proceeded to Lexington through Mystic and alarmed Mr. Adams and Colonel Hancock. After I had been there about a half hour, Mr. Dawes arrived, who came over from Boston over the neck.
I reached Lexington a little after midnight and discovered Revere had arrived about 30 minutes earlier. We rested a short time and then moved on towards Lincoln and Concord. Some distance out of Lexington, we were overtaken by a young gentleman named Prescott, who was returning to Concord from an amorous rendezvous.
When we had got just past town line into Lincoln, the other two stopped at a house to awaken men. I kept along. When I got about 200 yards ahead of them, I saw 2 officers. I called to my riding companions to come up, saying, "Here were 2 regulars." In an instant, I saw 4 of them, who ran up to me with their pistols in his hand and said,
"Damn it! Stop! You go 1 inch more, and you are a dead man."
Immediately, Dr. Prescott came up.
We attempted to get through them, but they kept before us. They swore if we did not turn into the pasture up there, they would blow our brains out. They forced us in, and we went in. I said, "Put on!" And I took a left.
And I to the right, towards the wood at the bottom of the pasture, intending, when I gained that, to jump my horse and run afoot.
I cleared the stone wall and took a trail I knew that led down to the swamp. It made good my escape.
Just as I reached the wood, out started 6 officers, seized my bridle, put the pistols to my breast, ordered me to dismount, which I did.
I hadn't quite caught up when the activities began. Seeing we were outnumbered and I wheeled around and charged off in the opposite direction. To throw them off, I called out to imaginary others in the shadow. The ruse worked. The soldiers broke off their pursuit. However, my horse spooked near an abandoned building, threw me, and ran off.
One of the officers, who appeared to have the command there, and much of a gentleman, asked me where I came from. I told him. He asked me what time I left. I told him. He seemed surprised, said, "Sir, may I crave your name?" I answered, "My name is Revere."
What? Paul Revere?
Yes.
The others abused him much, but I said he should not be afraid. No one should hurt him.
I told him they would miss their aim. He said they should not. They were only waiting for some deserters they expected down the road. I told him I knew better. I knew what they were after, that I had alarmed the country all the way up, that their boats were caught aground, and I should have 500 men soon there. One of them said they'd had 1,500 coming. He seemed surprised and informed Major Mitchell of the 5th Regiment.
I, Major Mitchell, clapped my pistol to his head and said, "I'm going to ask you a few questions. And if you do not answer them, Exactly. You are a dead man.
I told him I esteemed myself a man of truth, that he had stopped me on the road, on the highway, made me prisoner. By what right, I do not know. I would tell him the truth. I am not afraid.
Meanwhile, after making sure that I was not being pursued, I traveled toward Concord and regained the road about a half mile up ahead. I stopped at the Hartwells to sound the alarm, and I turned my horse down the road and headed straight to Concord and sounded the alarm.
Mr. Prescott said there were regulars on the road nearby, and that more were coming out from Boston. These were the news we had read. We knew we had to inform Captain Smith half a mile down the road immediately, but Samuel couldn't do it just then, as he was sitting there in the car. So I left our young children with our servant girl and went myself. When I came back, Samuel was just about ready to depart with his two brothers to ascend the hill.
It was I, Captain Smith of the Lincoln Minutemen, who Mary Hartwell came to warn. I galloped on my horse to the center of Lincoln and roused my troops. By morning, over 110 Lincoln Minutemen and militia had arrived in Concord and was there as the first company to assist Concord in its defense.
It was 2 by the village clock when he came to the bridge in Concord town.
No, Mr. Longfellow. Revere never made it to Concord.
Well, it's poetic license, sir.
Proceed then.
He heard the bleating of the flock and the twitter of birds among the trees, and felt the breath of the morning breeze blowing over the meadows brown. And one was safe and asleep in his bed, who at the bridge would be first to fall, who that day would be lying dead, pierced by a British musket ball.
I ordered Revere to mount his horse. I asked an officer to take his reins. I said, by God, Revere, you shall not ride with reins, I assure you. I said we were going to be heading toward Lexington and his friends, and that if we were abused or he should attempt to run, I would blow his brains out.
When we had got into the road, they proceeded to lead me in front. We rode towards Lexington at a quick pace. They very often insulted me, calling me rebel and other such words. When we got within sight of the meeting house, we heard a volley of guns fired, as I supposed it at the tavern, as an alarm. The major ordered us to halt. He asked me how far it was to Cambridge, and many more questions, which I answered.
I've ordered my sergeant to take Revere's horse, and Revere to dismount. Then the sergeant and I rode off down the road and left Revere to fend for himself.
I went to the home where Adams and Hancock were staying in Lexington, and helped them get away. After arresting myself, I set off with another man to go back to the tavern to inquire the news. We were told troops were within 2 miles. We went to the tavern to get a trunk of papers belonging to Colonel Hancock. We made haste and had to pass through our militia, who were on the green behind the meeting house. As I passed, I heard the commanding officer speak to his men. Let the troops pass